Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with Dr. Michael Geist. Michael, so CRTC overreach. CRTC said they're not interested in regulating a lot of user-generated content, but they're being given a lot more powers. Is this part of the concern?
That is, I think, part of the concern. We've had a CRTC that, especially in recent years, I think has really lost a lot of public confidence. There have been concerns around bias with the CRTC chair. In fact, this bill will, should it become law, will vest enormous new powers into the CRTC. The chair says it could take years to work through the various issues that it would be required to deal with. And in fact, the current chair won't even be the chair once these things come before it. So we don't know who's going to be responsible for it. There are questions about how transparent that system is, how slow the CRTC tends to be, whether it's beholden to certain vested interests. And so while there is, of course, a role for a regulator around broadcast-related issues, the government has really been treating the CRTC as almost this policy dumping ground for internet-related issues, vesting enormous power and creating a great deal of uncertainty because they're not providing, at least at this stage, very much guidance in the legislation itself about what they have specifically in mind.
Let's flip it over now, talk a little bit about the artists. It seems to me that they will be affected by Bill C-11 in one form or another. Were they promoting this kind of bill, or are they expressing concerns about this bill, or is it a little bit of both?
It's a bit of both. It's interesting. Certainly, there are some of the conventional groups that are out there that are saying they're happy to see an update to the Broadcasting Act, and they believe that this will put more money into the system, and so they think that this will be a good thing. At the same time, we've seen some significant concerns. We've seen, for example, the largest entertainment union in the country say they've got real concerns with this approach. They say that many of their members who are going all out right now, because we're seeing record amounts of investment take place in film and TV production in Canada. They're concerned that they often don't count when it comes to certified Canadian content. And so the fact that the government says this will actually create more Canadian stories and more employment, they say, hold on a second, we're employed, we're getting all kinds of opportunities, but you don't even count our participation in this process as mattering for the purposes of CanCon certification. And then there are the digital first creators, some of the most successful creators who are operating right now, some with literally tens of millions of subscribers, billions of views globally, and they are deeply concerned with this legislation. Many have appeared before the committee studying the bill, saying that they are fearful that if this legislation passes in its current form by including user content within it, this will really put their own livelihoods at risk, their ability to reach those global audiences at risk. I have to tell you, it is rather remarkable to see the digital creators saying that they're concerned, the platform saying they've got reason for concern because this is what will happen on the TikToks and YouTubes of the world, the CRTC chair saying it's all part of it, and yet Heritage Minister Pablo Rodriguez feels like last man standing, saying there's nothing to see here, it's not in the bill. He's contradicted by just about everybody at this stage.
And that's the other thing too. The media giants are not happy about it. Are there like I'm thinking of Bell CTV and others? Are they on the other side of this saying, yeah, we need this, we need them to be regulated just as we're regulated?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question because there's been really crickets, quite frankly, even though some of those large broadcasters have come forward. Several that have appeared have talked about deregulating their participation in the system. So they said, yes, we would like to see the Netflixes of the world regulated more, but we would also like to see less regulation for us. And then there's Bell, which incredibly came forward before the committee and said that the way to solve the creation of Canadian content situation was to actually ensure that they got cheaper access to US content. And they say that their business model is all about cheap access to US content. They're concerned that many of the US content owners either are going direct to Canadian consumers through streaming services, or they're the large streamers themselves who own it and are not interested in licensing it. And so Bell's come forward both before committee and in public op-eds saying they'd like to see this bill create rules where the government could encourage or incentivize licensing cheap US content into Canada or mandating partnerships with companies like Bell. It's incredible to see that we see nothing coming out of the cultural community saying, hold on a second, your solution to more Canadian content is actually more cheap US content. It just doesn't make sense.
We're going to continue this discussion. There's obviously a lot to talk about. Our guest will be back after these messages. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.